am standing here in the Nana Hala National Forest in North Carolina, and this is exactly where, when Nathan and I were dating, we were camp counselors, and we were whitewater raft guides here on this river, and I was a kayak guide on Okeechobee, and this just brings back so many memories. But we're here now. This is our second year coming to this area to bring the boys to family camp. So it's kind of fun to reconnect to our roots and remember and reminisce, Nathan and I, when we were dating. And I wanted to share a couple things with you. Yesterday, I spoke at an incredible event at Calvary Chapel in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And it was an amazing room, just packed with women who were so hungry for the Lord. And it was all about entrepreneurship. And Sean, who is the wife of Pastor Frank, they pastor the church there at Calvary. They actually have over 200 acres where they built an entire farming operation where they're restoring men and women who are just in very difficult life situations right now. And to see how they've rolled up their sleeves and gotten into the community, and they're actually living the word of God out. They are discipling people, discipling men back to their families, back to restoration, in discipling them and restoring them back into connection and relationship with the Lord, and then back into society. And so there were some really amazing questions and things that I'll talk about in the future here as we continue on with our 90-day transformation. But at the end of this time that I spoke here, two of the ladies came up to me and they were talking about starting their own business together. And it really, the conversation inspired me to share something with you. So I get questions all the time. How do I start a business? What's the first thing I should do? And there's actually a lot of questions that I would ask before I just give somebody a carte blanche answer like that. But there are some basic frameworks that I always recommend. But based on the conversation I had with these two ladies who are both moms, who are doing some really incredible things just in their friendship, and they're in the early stages right now, brainstorming their business, and it's very exciting. I love that stage because all the ideas are just flourishing and they've really landed on a couple concepts. And so I want to share with you what I told them and what I would do if I was in their scenario. And so first of all, when you are ready to start a business, I always recommend, of course, make sure that you're in a category or an industry that has demand, because you don't want to create a product where there's no demand, because business is all about an exchange of value for profit. And so we're in business to make money. And that's the very first thing. When I started my skincare company, I knew everybody for all eternity is going to be using and buying soap. It's a good industry to be in. And don't worry about saturation, because your uniqueness and your approach to business and your branding and your culture and everything that you pour in and who you are as the entrepreneur is actually going to attract a whole different tribe than somebody else who's going to maybe create a similar product. But creating a new opportunity within your marketing and within your product line is part of the development process, which is not actually what I'm going to talk about at this stage. So what I coached them on is, I said, the very first thing you want to do is just start attracting your tribe by building an email list. And we do that through, create a freebie, an opt-in, something where people give you their email in exchange for value. And so it could be a checklist. It could be some kind of quiz that gives you answers at the end that's pertaining to your particular situation. It could be a free ebook. Whatever the case may be, you want to add value in exchange for an email address. And the email list is actually something that you own. When you think about followers on social media, followers on YouTube, those things can all get shut down, but we have, as an email list, we have more ownership. We have ownership of that list. And then what you do is you want to nurture and indoctrinate the people who are subscribing to your emails. You want to train and educate and nurture, and really, this is how you attract your tribe. And then when the timing is right, this is what I told them. I said, the best thing you can do when you're first starting a business is don't pour a bunch of capital into a big building. Don't put a ton of money and energy into branding yet. That matters as you begin to grow. Everything, again, especially with business, it's line upon line, precept upon precept, and you start with the very smallest thing, and then you build upon that. So for instance, for me, it was like, okay, I have an amazing bar of soap that I know is going to deliver results for people. So now I just needed to get it into people's hands. And so I said, start small, don't go rent a building, don't get a big, don't put a bunch of capital into this. Find a venue or find a space that you can start doing some of these workshops. And even if it's just once a week where you're attracting your tribe, you're helping them get results. And the first thing you want to do after you begin developing your email list, when you start to actually create an offer, and there's a whole training we could talk about within creating the offer, but the first thing you want to do is you want to actually help deliver results. And so that is going to build your marketing. It's going to help you sell more down the line as you begin to do digital marketing, as you begin to set up your website, all of those things. You're going to want to have some traction there where you've created results for people and for clients where they've given you, and don't do that part. I would say you can do it for free in the beginning just to get your first 10 to 15 testimonials, but ultimately you can charge at that stage as well, and it could be like an early bird or low ticket kind of pricing or offering in the very beginning. And then as you begin to grow, then you charge more. And as you begin to have a product that you know is delivering greater results. For instance, when I first started, I was wholesaling my soaps at $2 a bar. And it would take me about 2 months to cure a batch of soap. And the molds that I had created, there were these wooden molds that Nathan and I had built in our garage together. They were small enough to where we could lift them. Right now we can't, it would be very difficult to lift the molds that we have because they're so large and they carry, they hold a lot more soap. And so my molds were about 60 bars. So imagine this, it would take me a full day to pour 60 bars of soap, and the amount of cost going into that. So if I sold, if I went into a store and they did a $100 purchase order, that was 50 of my bars of soap. So that was a whole day of pouring and working, and then 2 months of curing. And so there wasn't a lot of profit in it for me. And if I could go back, I would probably do some things differently. So here's what I want to convey to you. When you're starting out, start small. You don't have to go big. You don't have to pour a bunch of capital into your company. Start with just creating an offer that you can go deliver results to your clients on the very first basic level. And do pour into those first clients. And of course, as always, we're going to pour into them always, high value, amazing transformation. Those things are things that you really want to think about. And when you're creating your offer, you want to think about how you can be unique and do things differently. And so one of the unique selling propositions that I had with our soaps is, first of all, they were local, and so there was a big draw with that because there were a lot of soaps and skincare products in these shops already, but they were from out of state. And so the fact that I was a local artisan was meaningful to these shops. The second thing was I really pushed the boundaries on our essential oils. So the essences, it actually attracted people from, if they had the doors open in their stores, people would come in and say, what is that smell? Because they could smell our bars. And so I really maximized what a batch of soap could hold as far as essential oils go. And then my ratios and my balances, at this point I'd already gotten some results because I'd given some bars away. I'd given multiple batches away in those first few curing stages. And I knew that people were getting transformation in their skin, that certain things that they had been trying to deal with or address in their skin were going away because they were using my soaps. So our products were delivering results. The essence was incredible. And the texture of the bars, this creamy lather. And so how can you create a product, whether you're in the digital space or a physical product, that really stands out and is unique and different than your competitors? And another question that I got yesterday was also, how much do you go into competitive analysis? And they didn't use that term, but they were like, do you go and actually research other companies as you're developing your product? And I said 100%. I did a ton of research on competition. Who was in the natural skincare space? You can go to Amazon and look at reviews and say, okay, wow, there's 20,000 reviews on this particular product, and here is what people are looking for here's what people like, here's what people don't like, just based on reviews. And so that is some very basic research that you do. So whatever industry you're going into, you can do your research and do a competitive analysis and come up with all the pros and the cons, and then you get to ideate and brainstorm about, how do I want to do things differently? How do we want to serve people with a better or a different experience? And then as you're doing this as well, there's trial and error and there's a learning curve, and you're going to get feedback from your clients, and they're going to say, can I get, and this actually happened quite a bit with my body bars. I realized very quickly that women want texture, essence, and they wanted transformation. And so the texture, like they wanted it to do all the hydration. They wanted really rich hydration, but they didn't want the product to be heavy. And they didn't want to feel oily on their, they didn't want it to feel oily on their skin. They wanted the essence to be really magnetic, but not overpowering. And of course, they wanted the transformation. And so I went back to the drawing board with many of my products as I was getting feedback, even on things like, can you create this essence? And there were certain times as well that I would create something that didn't sell as well, and I learned and figured that out very quickly. And so this is a process of trial and error, a process of discovery. And so when you're beginning your business, when you're starting, you want to go into this with curiosity and with an attitude that I'm here to serve the customer at its highest level and be unique in the marketplace. And so how are we going to be different, and how are we going to do things that ultimately, like, I used to think about, how am I going to love, just be so passionate about serving these clients? And so it's always a process. It's always, you're going to go layer upon layer and be faithful with that early season. Build your email list, nurture those potential customers, nurturing those people that are saying, yes, I want to know more from you. I want to get your newsletter or your email. And we'll talk about a newsletter at some point here down the road as well. But start that newsletter or start that email list. Create a freebie opt-in so that people are getting value in exchange for their email address. There's a lot more I could share too, just about partnerships and starting a company with a friend. You know, how do you do that in a way that is going to protect the relationship and protect the company? So for now, keep things simple. Create that very first product and just keep things simple at whatever level you're able to start. Find a way to do it so that you're not super capital intensive and capital heavy. Don't worry about the branding as much on this stage. You know, when I say branding, I'm talking about logos and, you know, all the color schemes. Those things will come as you build capital. So super excited to hear from you. You know, does this help? Is this helpful for you? Are there any questions you have, more questions you have about what to do when you're starting your business? And I'll give you a little sneak peek of this amazing view here for all of you that are on video today watching this podcast episode. Remember to, if you have comments, we want to hear your feedback in the comments there. If you're on YouTube or if you're on any of the channels, please feel free to leave a comment or a question and go into the show notes, click on the link. We want to hear from you, and super excited to see you more on the inside. Thanks for listening to today's show. Hit subscribe or follow, and be sure to share this episode with a friend.